In February 2024, the aviation industry of China displayed its Z-10 attack helicopter for the first time at the Singapore Air Show. After displaying their beloved Z-10, aka Fierce Thunderbolt, the PLA made the bold assertion that its helicopter was superior to its foreign counterparts. A Chinese state media outlet, Global Times, reported that the helicopter had outstanding flight performance, low air maneuverability, firepower, survivability, ergonomics, and reliability. This is significant for China because it's its first attack helicopter, which is said to have a range of around 695 miles and an empty weight of about 11,243 pounds. On top of claiming that the helicopter is superior, China has also stated that the helicopter was domestically developed. This is very interesting as people have identified that it looks a lot like the American Apache helicopter. In this video, we're going to dissect these two claims that China's made and discuss the scandal that has been surrounding the famous Fierce Thunderbolt. CCP bots are always at work trying to downvote our videos so that you, as our audience, don't get true and honest content. To help us fight back, give this video a like and share it with your friends and family too. Right, now let's get into today's video. Okay, before we go into talking about the Chinese Z-10 model, let's talk about the American Apache helicopter that everybody's comparing it to. During the Cold War, the US Army needed a helicopter that could hunt down tanks and other threats so that they could be taken out from a distance with a missile. After a lot of research and designing, the US began flight testing in the 1970s, and the AH-64 Apache was first approved for production on April 15, 1982. And as they say, the rest is history. Boeing, the creator of the fighter helicopter, released a statement in March 2023 celebrating that the Apaches had surpassed 5 million flight hours. It's been more than 3 decades since its first flight, but the Apache is still the top-ranked attack helicopter in the world. There's an extremely high demand for it, and it's used by countries like the UK, Egypt, India, and Taiwan. Now we're going to talk about why it's the top-ranked helicopter in the world. Unlike most fighter jets, the Apache's tandem seats sit higher to the rear while a weapons officer and co-pilot sit closer to the nose. During the night, the pilot is guided by an excellent PNVS wide-angle infrared night vision system for navigation. The gunner also has an infrared camera that's fitted with a laser target on the Apache's nose. The body of the aircraft is well protected by 2,500 pounds of light boron plating and Kevlar-lined seats, which can deflect 0.5-inch bullets and 0.9-inch flat cannons. Even the fuel tanks of the aircraft are protected by a self-sealing protection system. The helicopter is equipped with two 1700 T700 GE701 turboshafts, which are on either side of the body. Another distinct feature of the aircraft is its stub wings, which can carry anything from 2.75-inch rockets to quad racks of AGM-114 Hellfire anti-tank missiles. Outside of its impressive design, the Apache has earned its title because of the extensive hours it's spent in combat. The fact that it's still the top choice for a lot of countries proves its formidability. After going through the details of the American Apache, let's now talk about the prized Z-10. The Z-10 attack helicopter was developed by the Changhe Aircraft Industries Group and the China Helicopter Research and Development Institute for the People's Liberation Army. Its primary purpose is air-to-air combat in anti-armor and battlefield interdiction situations. The layout of the plane is the same as that of a conventional attack helicopter, with a nailed-down fuselage and stepped tandem cockpits. This cockpit has room for a gunner in the front and a pilot in the rear on ejection seats. The body of the aircraft has a sloped side and is tapered to the rear for a reduced radar cross-section. The helicopter has a 5-bladed main rotor and a 4-bladed tail rotor with 2 engines that are mounted at the back of the cockpit. It's 46 feet long with a rotor diameter of about 42 feet and a height of 12 feet. At takeoff, the maximum weight that the Z-10 can carry is 8 tons. In terms of its readiness for the battlefield, to withstand bullets, the cockpit's protected by composite armor and a bulletproof glass canopy that can take 0.3-inch rounds. The modern glass cockpit is also equipped with multifunctional displays, a helmet with night vision goggles, and a fly-by-wire control system. These control systems are important because they help pilots to communicate with flight control surfaces. Some versions of the Z-10 can also be fitted with forward-looking infrared, a low-light television, and a radar system. In terms of the weapons it can carry, it's compatible for use with the newly developed HJ-10 anti-tank guided missiles. The helicopter also has the capacity to carry about 8 anti-tank guided missiles, 8 TY-90 air-to-air missiles, and 4 PL-5, PL-7, and PL-9 air-to-air missiles. The Z-10 can hold multi-barrel unguided rocket pods and has 4 pods under its subwings that can carry 2.2 to 3.8-inch rockets. According to Global Times, a group of 4 Z-10s can carry 32 anti-tank missiles, 8 2.2-inch caliber multiple rocket launchers, and 4 guns, which is enough to wipe out 3 tank companies. The electronic countermeasure system is quite impressive, and it contains a radar warning receiver, a laser warning receiver, an infrared jammer, and a flare decoy launching system. The engine, which is a PT6C-67C turboshaft engine, is another important part of the aircraft, and it has a maximum continuous power of 1,142 kilowatts. In August 2024, a picture emerged online showing a PLA Z-10 attack helicopter flying with a KG-300G EW electronic warfare pod. The Z-10 was flying alongside a Russian-origin Mi-8 helicopter, and the pod could be seen under the left stubwing. As of 2024, the attack helicopters have been incorporated into the Chinese arsenal and are ready for use during war. In preparation, the helicopters have been used by the country's army aviation units for exercises near Taiwan and India. However, in terms of exports, Pakistan is the only country that has acquired the helicopters so far, making it the largest user of Chinese-manufactured defense systems. From a description of the specs of the American Apache, we can tell that it's going to take an out-of-this-world creation to compete. Since China's made the bold assertion that its Z-10 is a cut above its counterparts, let's compare it to the American Apache attack helicopter. Pictures that have been released of the Z-10 show that it resembles both the Apache helicopter and the Bell's Invictus Future Attack Reconnaissance aircraft. The Apache helicopter is a veteran fighter plane that has been used by America since the Gulf War. The multi-mission twin-engine helicopter was first flown in 1975, and since then, Boeing has been upgrading and developing them for the U.S. Army. Like the Z-10, it has a 4-blade main rotor and an armored cockpit. It's equipped with 2 T-7GE701C engines and has advanced sensors and avionics. The latest version of the Apache helicopter is the AH-64E, which has improved engines and sensors. Another model that Z-10 gets compared to is the Bell Invictus helicopters. These are fairly new, and they're part of the U.S. Army's new Future Attack Reconnaissance program. This helicopter is a lot more modern and designed for stealthy operations. If we were to compare the fuselage, the Apache helicopter loses to the Bell Invictus and Z-10. The Z-10's side structure and shape increase the ability to be covert during missions. On the other hand, the Apache is more rectangular and angular, making it unfit for stealth exercises. Like the Z-10, the Bell's Invictus is rounder and smoother, in a deliberate effort to lower its radar signature. Its shape allows it to blend more naturally and be less detectable to radar return signals. If this was the battle for the stealth fighters, the Z-10 would win because its center and back end are more rounded and its body blends better. In terms of range, the Z-10 has a further range of 497 miles, while the Apache's is only 295 miles. However, the Apache beats the Z-10 at speed, reaching 226 miles per hour, while the Z-10 only reaches 186 miles per hour. The body of the Z-10 is lighter at 7 tons, and the Apache weighs a good 10.4 tons. Ultimately, the Z-10 is unique because it's a mix of different technologies and helicopter designs. However, determining whether it is superior is difficult, as there's not enough data on its experience to compare it to a veteran like the Apache, or newer models like the Bell Invictus. Currently, it's not a direct competitor in terms of global military helicopters, but it could be in the next couple of years. The next assertion we're going to tackle is whether China's Z-10 was domestically developed. We'll take a look at the history of its development to determine if China can really say that the aircraft was homegrown. Recently, we crossed 1 million subscribers. Ever since then, we've been flooded with emails asking us questions and advice about growing a channel on YouTube. Even though we try our best to reply to every single email, sometimes this takes up too much time, or they ask the same question we've answered before. That's why we've decided to put all of our YouTube advice into one email bootcamp for completely free. So if you're someone who's interested in starting your own YouTube channel, you can get your email bootcamp by clicking the link below or scanning the QR code in the description. Now, back to the video. Developing this specific style of fighter helicopter was important because of China's terrain. On the northwest side, China has high-altitude desert regions, and in the southwest region is China's Qinghai-Xizang Plateau. China needed to develop the Z-10 so it could handle China's high-elevation border regions. China began development in the 1990s and invested about $500 million into the project, which was a lot more money back then. Originally, the project was purely domestic, and manufacturing was done by China's aviation industry and the military's 602 Research Institute. As time went on, China realized that it was not self-sufficient and it needed help. Certain parts of the helicopter needed to be imported, and China had to turn to its foreign counterparts for assistance. The problem was, China was not a people's favorite at the time. Russia had no interest in selling China its Mi-24 helicopters, and the US was not cooperating. China had initially been able to secure an agreement to purchase AH-1 Cobras from the US, but the deal was cancelled because of the 1989 Tiananmen Square protests and massacre. China became very unpopular after this because the Chinese government deployed troops to massacre students during a peaceful protest. The US Congress also prohibited the export of any defense articles to China under the Tiananmen sanctions, so China couldn't import any helicopter technology. Although this slowed down its progress, things started looking up for China when Eurocopter France assisted them in developing their rotor system. The South African arms manufacturer Denel also provided technical assistance to the project based on its experience in designing the Denel Royal-Valk, while the British-Italian company Augusta Westland assisted with the transmission technology for the helicopter. From the looks of things, this project was a group one, and many countries contributed to the final design. Publicly, China was claiming that the 602 Research Institute was in charge of the project, but Russia's rotorcraft manufacturing company Kamov was the brain behind the design of the aircraft. Under a secret contract, Kamov designed everything from the weight, speed, and payload capacity of the helicopter. After the initial early-stage designs were done, Kamov handed everything over and testing and further developments were done by China. Now, the engine development for the helicopter is where all hell broke loose between the US and China. China had its eyes on P&WC's turbo engine, but knew that there was no way they would get it legally. The US embargo meant that no American company was allowed to export such technology to China. Unfortunately, Pratt & Whitney Canada, which is a subsidiary of United Technology Corporation, was a big US defense contractor looking to make a quick buck. So initially, P&WC found a loophole that allowed them to deliver 10 engines from Canada to China in 2001 and 2002. Their excuse was that this sale did not go against the US's military embargo because the engines were identical to the ones it was supplying China with for its commercial helicopters. After this, it delivered advanced engine control software to China through its Connecticut-based subsidiary Hamilton Sundstrand. These designs allowed China to test and develop the P&WC engines for their military helicopter. It took the US 6 years of investigation, but it finally nailed P&WC for the crime. The case against P&WC and its subsidiaries was because the company had endangered US national security in an attempt to access China's civilian helicopter market. P&WC was aware of the fact that China was going to use the software to develop its military helicopter program, but it chose to look the other way so that it could benefit. The US Attorney David Fine commented on the case saying, P&WC exported controlled US technology to China, knowing it would be used in the development of a military attack helicopter in violation of the US arms embargo with China. P&WC took what it described internally as a calculated risk, because it wanted to become the exclusive supplier of a civilian helicopter market in China, with projected revenues of up to $2 billion. The hearing was held at a federal court hearing in Bridgeport, Connecticut. The decision led to United Technologies and its 2 subsidiaries, Pratt & Whitney Canada and Hamilton Sundstrand Corp., agreeing to pay over $75 million to the US government for criminal and administrative charges. $20.7 million was for criminal fines, forfeitures, and other penalties, and $55 million was for payments to the State Department. In the end, United Technology accepted full responsibility for the violations and said that it spent $30 million and hired more than 1,000 employees to help with internal export oversight. This scandal completely blew China's domestic production claim right out of the water. One of the reasons why China continued with the lie that the helicopter was developed locally was to bypass international arms embargoes and restrictions that blocked China from importing certain parts. Another reason was probably that China was too proud to admit that it needed everyone's help to develop its first attack helicopter. Pretending it did it all on its own also instilled national pride in the Chinese people, and support for the People's Liberation Army increased too. The PLA's obsession with the PNWC's engine was its full authority digital engine control, which is basically a control system with no manual overrides or manual controls. This means that the engines run independently and allow them to reach a range of about 756 miles. Armed with the designs from PNWC, China was able to build a full helicopter, and in April 2003, the Z-10 had its first flight. The maiden flight was completed at Lumeng, and by December 2003, all test flights had been concluded. In 2009, the first operational helicopters were sent to the People's Liberation Army, and Wu Zhengming, the chief designer, claimed that the Z-10 was in the world's top 3 gunships. While no one can deny the blood, sweat, and tears that China put into developing the attack helicopter, claiming that it was domestically developed is a stretch. After the PNWC fiasco, China lost its ability to use its engines for later models of the Z-10. So it started developing its own version of the WZ-9 turboshaft engines. Interestingly enough, these engines weren't independently designed either. With the assistance of Ukraine and Russia, China was able to develop a turboshaft engine of its own. The new engines have slightly less power than the PNWC engine, with a power of about 1,000 kilowatts. Domestic production was a lot cheaper, and the low operational costs and freedoms from international politics seemed to be worth it. On top of the assistance with the engine, the Bureau of Russia also helped to design the helicopter airframe. Looking at the evidence, it's clear that there was a lot of input from the outside, and China was able to perfect what it had because of all the insight it had from different countries that had produced fighter aircrafts of their own. In 2020, China unveiled an upgraded variant of the Z-10 attack helicopter in service with the People's Liberation Army Ground Force. The new model is fitted with different exhaust outlets that point upwards instead of outward. This new design is to help reduce the helicopter's infrared signature as seen from the ground. China may want to maintain that its processes and operations are unique and indigenous, but some of its systems have been borrowed from the US. Let's look at the fact that even the operation of the helicopter fleet is similar to that of the American system. The US Army includes a combat aviation brigade in each of its divisions to ensure each battalion is covered on the ground and in the air. So far, the PLA has created 15 aviation brigades, which means that about 13 of its groups have aviation brigades. Each Chinese brigade will have around 80 of these helicopters, which is similar to what the US does. In terms of quantity, the US combat aviation brigades have about 1,200 Apaches in service, meaning they have a higher ratio of helicopters to soldiers. Another way that China seems to have copied the US is in the operation of its fighter helicopter. Beijing claims that it ran some war games and decided that the helicopter should be commanded by the Army and not the Air Force. This could just be a coincidence, as the US military runs their attack helicopters the same, and now China's created a People's Liberation Army Ground Force Air Force Go-2. Another interesting similarity between the two operations is the fact that in its recent developments, China's had to ditch its low anti-tank missile for something similar to what the US Apache uses. The US Apache uses the Hellfire missile, which is the primary weapon used by the US for air-to-ground attacks, and it's done so for a very long time. All of these operational similarities point to the fact that China's tried to model its new attack helicopter with the Apache attack helicopter in mind. The US should take this as a compliment, because imitation is the greatest form of flattery. We've already squashed the idea that China's Z-10 is better than the Apache, but let's see how it compares to other fighter helicopters. In a statement by China Central Television, the report stated that, thanks to its good aerodynamic design, domestically made engines, excellent handling, and maneuverability, the Z-10 is easier to control, has a longer range, and a better multitasking capability than its foreign counterparts, like the Eurocopter Tiger. Let's test this statement by comparing the Z-10 to the Eurocopter Tiger. This helicopter is a collaboration between France, Spain, and Germany, and it was created by Airbus Helicopters. It's a versatile copter that has been used for army reconnaissance, anti-tank operations, and close air support. It also has a 4-bladed hingeless main rotor to allow for the execution of full loops and negative maneuvers. The Tiger's been around for a lot longer than the Z-10, so it definitely has an operational edge. Both helicopters have the same range of 497 miles, and in terms of speed, the Z-10 is slightly faster at a speed of 186 miles per hour, while the Tiger moves at 181. There's also not much of a difference in weight, with the Z-10 weighing 7 tons and the Tiger weighing 6. The comparison shows that the Z-10 specs could definitely compete with the Eurocopter, but actual combat will give more insight. Let's take a look at an opinion on the attack helicopters and see where China stands objectively. According to AeroCorner, the Apache is the most successful attack helicopter of all time. Its success rate has earned it this position, and its ability to be used in different environments is impressive. Just making the top 10 at number 10 is Russia's Ka-50, which is a single-seat attack helicopter in Scout. It has a unique dual rotor and was the first helicopter with an ejection seat in 1995. It's a very powerful gunship with many versions that have worked well for air-to-air combat. According to this ranking, China's Z-10 comes in at number 15. Aerospace notes that the Z-10 is impressive because of its cutting-edge technology and its modern design. While 15 is not the highest on the list, this is quite high praise for a fighter aircraft that is yet to be seen in action. A stock take of China's arsenal shows that they have over 150 Z-10 helicopters in service, and these are currently stationed at 20 Chinese military bases. The development of the fleet of helicopters has been long and slow, but the Chinese have come out with something impressive. Beijing's success has been dampened by the claims that it's been domestically developed and superior. This has forced experts to take it a notch down and compare them to a lot of veterans in the game. While China's Apache lookalike helicopter is not superior to a lot of more premium fighters, China's technology and development definitely place it in the top 10 attack helicopters in the world.